All right, so welcome to rigid lines. We're going to go over the inspection of rigid lines. We're going to go over the removal. We're going to go over the manufacturing of a new rigid line to replace the damaged one, and then we're going to go into installation. All right, let's start with inspection. So we want to check for any and all metal lines for leaks, loose anchorage, scratches, kinks, or other damage. We want to make sure that their fittings are connected, they're not loose, and there's no cracks, burrs, or other damage. What you're looking for is making sure that it's not leaking and that it's not physically damaged, meaning that there's not a scratch on it that's deeper than 10% of the outside diameter of the tubing. And you also want to make sure that any dent on there, anywhere on the line, is not greater than 20% of the total circumference of the line, unless it's in a heel of a bend, which means that it's like on the inside or outside, as the chart shows. And this one is greater than 20%. You can see it right there. It's probably at more like 30 or 40%. It's almost like halfway through it. So we're going to have to replace this line. All right, so how do we replace a line, though? We're going to have to lay it down. The AC 4313 says there's two basic methods. One, you can trace it out like I'm about to do right here. Or if it's just too big, you can use a steel wire as a template. And I've never seen that done, but I've definitely seen plenty of traces that are out there. Another kind of good practice is just to measure all the different lengths of it before you discard it or start cutting up the line if you're going to reuse the fittings that are on there. So that way you know about how long the pipe that you're or the tubing that you're about to cut needs to be. In this case, it needs to be 6 inches long. So you see, I've attached the pipe cutter there, the tubing cutter, and you want to turn it towards the open side of the tubing cutter. So you notice that like it's going towards where the open side would be. And as you're spinning the tubing cutter, you're tightening down, and that's causing the little blade in there to cut deeper into the tubing. And eventually, it'll just break off. You keep on tightening, and you'll start to get a sense of like how long it takes you to do it. And you just cut it off, and then I'll go back and remeasure, make sure that I didn't trick myself and cut something too short. Okay, so once you're done cutting it off, you're going to lay your new piece of tubing on your template that you made, and then just mark off where the first curve needs to be. And so you should have an idea of about how many degrees of bend you need to put into that tubing, so that way it matches the original that came off the airplane. In this case, it's 90 degrees. Now, on our tube bender, and there's a bunch of different kinds of these. This is just one of them. It'll have two hash marks, one on the kind of the brace side, what I'll call the brace side, and the other one on the actuating side. And you'll start by putting the tube into the curved piece on the brace, and then the actuating side will come around, and you'll see 2 degree marks that'll measure up. It'll be 0 and 0. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're just going to pull the actuating side down until we get to the degree of bend that we need. And then we're going to take it out of the brace side, and we're just going to lay it up against our template and make sure that we did what we said we started out to do. So that way we know that we have a good bend in our pipe. We didn't do it too fast, it's not cracked, it's not damaged in some way. And then in case it is, like this one, like say one of the sides that we cut has been artificially damaged, we're going to fix it. So we're going to recut it, and we're going to make sure that we sand it off so that way any burrs that are left on there are removed. We can also use a deburring tool and deburr it. This is just one deburrer that we had. There's a bunch of different varieties in there. There's some that are specifically for tubing. Now, the main reason we want to deburr it and make sure it's clean is so that way when we flare it, it doesn't crack or get deformed. Alright, so the next step is to put our coupling on there. So we're going to start off by putting our B-nut on. It'll go first, because you have to do everything in reverse. Then you put the sleeve with the fat end towards where the union's going to be. We'll take our tube and our flaring tool. This flaring tool, there's 2 dies on the back side that you'll match up to the size of the tube. And then once it's fully sat on the little crow's beak stopper, we're going to latch it down. We'll latch those 2 dies down and tighten it up to keep the rigid tube in place. Now, once it's set in there, your kind of pointy end that actually makes the flaring point, will sit inside the tube, and you're just going to slowly but surely and very methodically tighten it down until the tube is flared out completely with the to the size of the die. Then you simply just take everything apart, just do everything in reverse to get the tube out. At the end of it all, you should inspect it, look for any cracks, burrs. Cracks are a big thing as you start to spread the metal apart, and it should be a perfect 37-degree flare that's ready to go back on the aircraft. When you go to install it, you're just gonna put it in there and then just hand tighten the B nuts back into place. Now, as you do this, you don't want to use the B nuts to force the line to sit in place, because what you want to do is have a perfect straight flare set on the AN nipple. That way it'll ensure like a good seal. You won't have any leaks whenever you do your leak check later on. Take a wrench, get it snug, but don't over torque it, because remember, we're going to come back here with a torque wrench here in just a second and make sure that we have the right torque on there. Now, torque wrench is really important. If you over torque it, you have a really good chance at breaking something, because remember, this is aluminum, it's soft, just like we learned in our metallurgy lecture. But if you under torque it, then you're going to have a leak. And this is a de-icing fluid inside an avionics bay. It cannot, it will not stand to have fluid floating around a bunch of computers and things like that. That can be very expensive. And if you under torque it, it might pass a leak check, but then fail in flight, which would be a really bad time to have all your auto flight systems go out. A couple other things here. Remember to maintain the integrity of your torque. Don't, whenever you're putting attachments on there, make sure you do the math right, or at least keep it aligned right. Make sure that you account for the thing that it's attached to. So you see this transducer here that is wanting to move with the torque. I'm having to hold it straight and then push against the torque. You don't want to throw your torque reading off, and you also don't want to break anything as you're torquing stuff. Now, we've set the torque to 57 inch-pounds. That's because in the AC 4313, it gives us a range of 55 to 65 inch-pounds for a line of this size. We always want to shoot mid-range on our torque. Alright, once we have torqued our line in place, we know that it's good. We want to put what's called a witness mark. I'm using a paint marker here because it's what we have, but torque stripe is pretty much the industry standard. I have seen people use magic markers. They all work. Essentially what you're doing is you're making a mark on both the nut and the thing that the nut is attaching to, so that way if the line were to move or to come untorqued or something, you would see the disjoint in the line. Like, here's an example of a torque stripe that has been used on one of the boxes for an airline. And you can see the mark that we just made right here. Now, if that B nut starts to spin, we'll know that, hey, look, the yellow mark is now somewhere it's not supposed to be.